and good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining us today for the session. Let's talk about it. Learn to Communicate Assertively, presented by Dionne Teasley. My name is Sanshida Pal, and I will be moderating this session. Peter and Cheryl is here with us for the tech support. Please note that we will be providing the slides and the recording of this session to everyone on the main Now Conference website after the conclusion of this conference. And now a few housekeeping rules. In today's session, you will be muted. Please add your questions in the chat box. I will be collecting questions and moderating the Q&A at the end of the session. You can also message me directly if you would like to keep your questions anonymous. And lastly, closed captioning is available for this session. Please click the CC box at the bottom of the screen for subtitles. And with that, I'm happy to introduce you to our presenter, Dionne Teasley. Dionne is a director in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions at UC Berkeley. She has a passion for assisting students with finding their pathway to higher education. When Dionne is not reading applications or assisting students or tabling at the college fair, she is a practicing communication skill coach. Dionne has a long list of certifications in many areas, including people management, practical mysticism, nonviolent communication, and life coaching. She has a passion for assisting people with finding their assertive voice and is a cheerleader for anyone who wants to learn more about mindful communication. One of our main goals when working with clients is to remind them that our words have power. Developing our assertive communication style helps us with identifying our needs, which in turn creates a clearer path for getting those needs met. So please join me in welcoming Dionne Teasley.
Thank you, Sanchita, for that amazing introduction. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Okay, my clicker is not working. Give me 1 second. I do apologize. All right, back on track. So welcome. Thank you all for choosing to be here this morning. I'm extremely excited to talk to you all about assertive communication. So if you haven't already, grab your favorite morning beverage and your favorite pen, along with some pen and paper for taking notes. And before we get into the rest of this presentation, let's settle in by taking 3 grounding deep breaths. And if you're not accustomed to taking deep breaths, I'll walk through it with you. So something that I like to do, I'll put my hand, you can't really see, my hand on my belly, and I'll take to start inhale to fill in your belly, and then the exhale. But just to kind of set the mood for getting grounded, it's going to chime, and then we'll start breathing. All right, breath 1. Last 1. All right, please give yourself a round of applause for being here today and being interested in assertive communication. So just a little bit about me and my story and about my journey of finding my assertive voice. In the interest of time, I'm going to share a very abridged version of my journey to finding my assertive voice. My name is Dionne Teasley. I am a Bay Area native from Richmond, California. I am an assistant director with the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. I've been on campus for around 6 years, and I am also a life coach. In my life coaching practice, I enjoy helping people develop their effective communication skills. I want you to know that I graduated from El Cerrito High School. Go Gauchos, if there are any Gauchos in the house. I attended Contra Costa College, and then I transferred to Sac State. But before becoming a life coach, I worked at UPS for 16 years, where I had many responsibilities. I was a supervisor, I was a package delivery driver. I even spent a short amount of time driving the tractor trailers, you know, the 18-wheelers. And so after leaving UPS, I worked with children and helped them develop techniques on managing their emotions. And to my surprise, I even became a high school counselor when I worked at a community-based organization. I've been married, divorced, and married again. I have two amazing kids and two really interesting cats. So I shared all that to say that I've crossed paths with lots of people. And because of this, I've had plenty of opportunities to practice communicating. Sometimes I was good at it, and sometimes I was just plain terrible at it. But practice was always happening, even when I wasn't aware that I was practicing. Out of all the highs and lows I've experienced in my life, the one thing that stands out for me personally has been my evolution as a communicator. But my improved communication could not have evolved without every one of those listed experiences that I just shared. And as a result, I've been so moved by what I learned over the years that I decided to become a life coach, just so I could tell as many people as possible about the awesomeness of utilizing effective communication skills by way of assertive communication. Now, assertive communication is a big topic, and I wish I had time to tell you everything that I know about this subject. But today we're just going to dip our toes in the water a bit, just to get a better feel of this thing called assertive communication. Lastly, I hope you leave this workshop knowing at least one thing, that every day is an opportunity to practice your assertive communication skills. So let's go ahead and talk about it. And if you could please mute yourselves. Thank you. So today, what we'll be covering, well, my intentions for you all is to introduce you to the 4 communication styles. We're going to talk a little bit about finding your assertive voice, and we want to understand the practice of value. We want to understand the value of practicing. And there are some communication barriers that are just naturally there in front of us, but as we become aware of those barriers, we will find ways around them. And we will have time at the end of the presentation for some questions and conversation. So I do like to set up norms before we move forward. So today, I just want y'all to feel like this is a safe place. When we talk about communication, what is going to come up, or what I think you'll find, is that they're always connected to our emotions, like the manner in which we choose to communicate, or we can't help ourselves. Somehow emotion is connected to that. So no, it's a safe place. And when I say no judgment zone, I mean no judging yourself. It's the best place for you to like just be open and think about ways that you can learn and grow. So again, that's why I like to also say, don't put things so much in a that's right or that's wrong. Really just focus on all the opportunities to learn more about this subject. So Santita's going to help us out. Peter's going to help us out with this poll. And the first poll is poll number 1. And since we'll be discussing communication today, I really just wanted, this is more like an icebreaker to help you reflect on your own communication style. And Sanchita, whenever you're ready, please share any results that people are sharing. Sanchita?
Actually, Peter, please share the results of the poll, please.
I'm sorry, Paul. Sorry about that, Sanchita. Peter?
Yeah, sorry. It looks like we're about 92% completed.
Thank you. Thank you. Could you just talk me through it? I cannot see the screen. Thank
Sure.
you.
Gotcha. So it looks like currently we're looking at 25% are saying getting results, 39% for cooperation, 9% for precision, and 28% for being friendly. And just so you know, we have 250 participants in this room.
Thank you. That's not scary at all. All right. So everybody, thanks for participating in this poll. Again, it's more of an icebreaker, but I want you to know you have all of these styles, and these are all very good reasons why you engage in communication. So we have one more icebreaker or poll question for you. I guess I have to go back and touch my screen. Sorry about that. Speaker turned into a poll. Oh, I have to close the poll on my end. My apologies.
All right. So
All right. One more question for y'all. Thank you. And hopefully after this poll will be the last time I'll have to step away from the screen.
We have about 90% of the votes.
All right.
And it looks like overwhelmingly, people are saying D, all of the above.
All of the above. You got it. It was a trick question. We need all of these. And I just want to point out there is a time and place for a particular type of communication or listening style, right? So let me stop the poll on my laptop and I'll be right back. Okay, so next we're going to get right into the 4 styles of communication. The 4 basic communication styles are passive, passive-aggressive, aggressive, and assertive. So next I'll be sharing a brief overview of each communication style. Passive communicator. A passive communicator finds it difficult to express their honest feelings and thoughts. They're likely to take the blame for situations, even when it's not their fault. They find it extremely hard to manage conflict. So one overall impact can be that it's very hard to say no without feeling guilty. Passive communicators may feel they have no control in the situation and can feel alienated. Something you might look at as a benefit of this communication style is that conflict can be postponed in order to alleviate anxiety, but just want to keep in mind that is only going to be for the short term, right? Sorry, I practiced this 1,000 times and never had one problem. Just very Okay. Next up, let's make sure I didn't miss anything. Thank y'all for hanging in there with me. We're going to claim no more technical issues. Okay, moving on to the passive aggressive communicator. They express their aggressive feelings in an indirect way through passive resistance. So instead of openly confronting an issue, they tend to ignore the other person. They might complain behind the other person's back, or they may procrastinate. Sometimes they may act in a way that will frustrate others and then act innocent, like, you know, they didn't do anything. One impact of this is communicating as a passive aggressive communicator. It's only going to delay anger. And as you delay that anger, it's going to manifest itself in different ways and most likely in the most opportune moments. So a benefit for this style, I'd say none. It's kind of like communication purgatory because you're actually straddling 2 different styles. You're straddling passive and aggressive. So while you're straddling these styles, it really is going to add stress to you. So that's one thing that I want you to know that is very near and dear to my heart. It is the main communication style that took me years to work on. So trust me when I say there is no benefit. Next, we have aggressive communicators who are generally very focused on their own thoughts and perspectives and outwardly express themselves with little regard for the consequence of their words. So in general, an aggressive communication pattern will lead others to feel fear, intimidation, and general discomfort. Sometimes people mistakenly think they're being assertive when in fact they're being aggressive. And I would say that defining line is where is the respect? Are you doing this respectfully or disrespectfully? One impact is going to generate fears in others. And since little is their fault, it can be difficult for them to evolve emotionally or have healthy romantic relationships. There is a slight benefit. Aggressive communicators, they might be ideal in a time of a fight or flight situation. Aggressive communicators tend to be able to release stress because they don't hold back their emotions. And lastly, we have assertive communication, which is believed to be the healthiest form of communication. This communication style is about expressing your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs in an honest way without violating the rights of others. Assertive communicators clearly state their attitude and feelings while keeping the feelings of the other person in mind. They can advocate for themselves without alienating those around them. Impact. When being assertive, you're looking for a win-win outcome. You're able to say no without feeling guilty, and it allows you to freely offer ideas and suggestions in a respectful manner. Benefit. This form of communication is fundamental for building connections with others and forming healthy relationships at work, or at home, or just out in the world in general. So I do want you to know that none of us are restricted to just one of these styles. We all have a mixture of these communication styles. I like to say we're on the spectrum of all four of these styles. For example, I'm gonna just play with me here. I'm just gonna be a person going throughout their day and how they experience like all four of these communication styles, just like a regular day at work. So example number one, let's look at aggressive. Let's say you got a late start to work and you're stuck in traffic and someone cuts you off. You use all the swear words you know to communicate your displeasure about their driving decisions, right? So next, we get to work and your supervisor calls you and say, hey, I need you to work over the weekend. You absolutely do not want to work this weekend. You already promised your kid you were going to be at their last soccer game, but you're also not sure how to say no. So just to be safe, you say yes, and you'll figure out how to approach your kid later. Assertive. So now it's lunchtime and you've invited some of your colleagues to join you by way of email. And you say, hey guys, I miss you. Let's get some lunch. How about at the Thai house, I have put a copy of the menu. I've attached the menu. And if you're down, let's meet in front of Bancroft and Telegraph and we'll walk over promptly at 12:01. And if you can't make it, I understand. You're being completely assertive there. And now here's a passive aggressive example. Same day. So now you're back on the freeway, heading towards home. Your day at work was crazy and you just want to get home and decompress. Then your cell phone rings and it's your significant other who has no idea about your day. And they need you to pick up a loaf of bread from the store before you get home. So you think to yourself, oh, heck no. No. But what you say to your significant other is, oh, honey, I'll try my best to get to the store. But you say this knowing full well that you are not going anywhere near the store, right? So those are examples of how we pass through these communication styles in and out just throughout a typical day. So just for fun, I'm just going to reframe the aggressive, passive aggressive, and the that's all of them. And I'm going to reframe some of these, and we're going to try to look at it through the lens of an assertive communicator. So let's go back to being in traffic. I'm late to work. I'm in this traffic. I can't really do too much about it. And this reckless driver is next to me. Okay, this might be a sign for me to get an earlier start tomorrow. So right there is less about the craziness that's in front of me, but more about what I can make different. Let's go weekend work. Hey, boss, this weekend I have a prior commitment. Is there something else I could do to support this project? So now you're standing your ground. You still want to demonstrate that you're working with the team, but you do have a priority. And let's talk about the grocery store run. This is something that's, again, near and dear to me. Hey, honey, I've had a lousy day. I only have the energy to make it home. Maybe after I take a nap, I'll feel better, and then maybe I could get to the store and pick up that bread. Thank you for understanding. So I just want you to know that even though we probably lean on one of these communication styles more than another, it is most likely that you practice all 4 communication styles, depending on the situation. Okay, if you please comfortable, can you please share in the chat which communication style you most identify with? And if Peter, you could just let me know a couple of responses.
Sounds good. Someone said her
Yeah,
style is all over the place. Thanks,
What did they
Sanchita.
say?
Go ahead.
yeah, I can see mostly like some has passive or passive aggressive. Some mostly have passive. Some
Mhm.
have assertive at work, passive elsewhere. Like I know Anna Meister said, like passive, assertive at work or passive elsewhere.
Yeah.
Darlene said passive. Kristen says passive. Roberta says like it depends on whom I'm speaking with.
Yes.
Natalie says mostly passive. Jessel passive. I can see mostly passive. Sarah Gagler said passive.
Yeah.
Monica Young passive.
Awesome.
And Marina depends on who I'm speaking with.
Mhm.
Robert also said passive. Gina passive.
Okay.
Caroline passive.
So
Mostly
Sanchita,
it's I'm saying passive.
Thank you. I'll hold you up right there. Thank you, y'all, for sharing that. And a lot of you were really mindful of it depends when and where. And that's just really, that does a lot. Just being mindful of where you are in your communication style. Thank you. So I have one more share in the chat question. So from what we've covered so far, can you please share in the chat like one of your takeaways about assertive communication thus far? And I know we haven't dug too deep into it, but so far, what any takeaways?
Some of them saying that I need to practice, like, and other Laudry says like, be honest.
Yeah. Thank you for
And
sharing your honest communication. I'm gonna hold you up right there. Thank you, Sanchita. Those 2 things are super valuable. Just finding that honesty within yourself. If I have time, I'll tell you about a reality check I got just last night. And, you know, practice, which we're going to talk a little bit more about. Thank you all. So next, I'm going to focus on 2 types of barriers that often make it difficult for people to understand each other. So in this next section, we're going to talk about miscommunication, kind of like how they can come up, and how our negative self-talk is not helpful. So encoding is the process of turning our thoughts into communication. So when we are the one speaking, we're the encoder. Decoding is the process of turning communication into thoughts. So when we are listening, we're the decoder. So if you wouldn't mind, please take a moment to check out what's on your screen. What do you think is going on with this phone call between these 2 people? Okay, so I want you to meet Jack and Dionne. They were introduced by mutual friends, and this is their first phone conversation. How do you think this is going to play out? Okay, I'll tell you. The phone conversation went pretty well. So Jack worked up the nerve to invite Dionne to his house for a fish dinner. But it turns out that Dionne is a total vegan. And she is very disappointed that Jack is a carnivore. Jack says to Dionne, but you said you like fish. But Dionne is never eating fish. So her connection to fish is never based on food. So I just want to share this because the process of encoding and decoding is tricky and is one of the biggest reasons misunderstandings occur when communicating with others. So let's get back to Jack and Dionne. Hopefully, this could be a moment that they can laugh about later, and just know that sometimes poor communication can happen with no malice intended. And it's okay to accept that honest misunderstandings are going to happen. So with this in mind, please do your best. If you feel or realize it's an honest mistake, do your best not to take it personal. Because when you don't take it personal, you're not going to evoke that emotion that you're not that in touch with, and it's not going to get in your way of finding, or there's less probability of getting in your way of finding your assertive voice. So when I saw this quote, I just had to add it to the presentation. I'll just read it real quickly. Between what I think, what I mean to say, what I think I say, what I really say, what I want to hear you, what I want to hear, what I think you hear, what you really hear, what you understand, what you think you understand, what you really understand. There are 10 possibilities for miscommunication, but let's still try. So because this is someone's quote, I didn't want to change any of it, but there are 10,000 possibilities really for miscommunication. These are just some examples of how it can happen. So here is one more barrier I would like to discuss to assertive communication, and we all experience this. It's called negative self-talk. So this is my friend Pam. She's upset with herself because she did not get the promotion at work. And right now, Pam's inner critic is telling her that she never does anything right. So what is negative self-talk? Basically, negative self-talk is any inner dialogue you have with yourself that might be limiting your ability to believe in yourself and recognize your own potential. It's any thought that diminishes your ability to make positive changes in your life. So negative self-talk can cause stress, and it can stunt your potential successes. It can also take many forms. Sometimes your negative self-talk just sounds like good old common sense. Like, I'm not really good at this. I should really attempt trying this. Like, really, it's just not safe for me to attempt this thing. That is one reason. Or sometimes that inner dialogue can just be downright mean, like what's going on with Pam right now. Like, I can never do anything right. Or there's times where it just really seems like a realistic appraisal of the situation. I got a C on my math test. Maybe I'm not college material, right? So there's all these different ways it could come at you. So do me a favor, and you can try this when you get home. Give your negative inner dialogue a name. I call my negative thoughts the gremlins because of how fast my negative thoughts can multiply, right? So I call them gremlin. It doesn't matter what you call them. There was this character from Saturday Night Live a couple of years ago. Her name was Debbie Downer. It doesn't matter. It's just something that you can quickly identify, because naming helps you call it out as soon as you recognize it. So sometimes when my gremlins are on the move, I say, hey, gremlins, AKA negative self-talk, stop it. You stop it right there. And of course, this is not going to completely stop all my negative thoughts, but it will surely disrupt it, even for a moment. And you know what I've learned? My gremlins do not like being disrupted. It's very important for them to be center stage at all times. So every time I question them, or I say, hey, wait a minute, they start to get a little frustrated and they stop appearing in the front of my mind as often. So again, this is not going to change everything, but it will get you a little bit closer to eliminating some of those negative self-thoughts. And I want to share just a quick exercise on how to help minimize negative self-talk. Now, I want to make it clear, I did not say stop, discontinue negative self-talk, to minimize it, because it's always going to be with us. but we have a little bit more say in how we manage it. So different strategies are going to work for different people. Here is something I like to call the do-over. So whenever I'm aware that my self-dialogue is being a gremlin, I immediately give myself permission for a do-over. So the goal of a do-over is to flip my thoughts from a negative to a positive, the best I can. So on the previous slide, Pam was telling herself that she never does anything right. As you can see, notice this slide is now flipped. So now here's Pam's do-over. Now she's telling herself that she'll be more prepared next time. See, she's focused on doing better in the future interviews as opposed to just kicking herself for not having her strongest interview in the past, right? So again, it's about what the negative self-talk is very hard to control that, but some things you do have agency over is what you plan to do now that you've learned from this experience. So remember, thinking negative thoughts about yourself may feel like a reasonable observation, but if you don't like what you're thinking, you don't have to agree with yourself. Agree to disagree. If you catch a negative self-talk taking things too far, just check them. So thank you again for hanging in there with me as I talked about some barriers, negative self-talk, how misunderstandings can happen very easily. So now this is going to be a 5-minute free write because we discussed these communication barriers. So I invite you to just take the next 5 minutes to reflect on these 2 questions. Which communication barrier would you like to work on? And why have you chosen this barrier? And this only needs to be personal to you. And again, just hope you reflect and help you move a little bit closer to your active communication. So now I'm going to stop my camera so Peter can play some free write music for me. Thank you, Peter.
Dionne, I just wanted to say everybody loved your choice of song. Yeah, it's like a lot of people are saying they should be like a theme song to start every work and family life day. So it's a really good choice of songs. Actually, it made everyone's day.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So to all y'all who participated and took the time to do this exercise, guess what you've just done? You've set intentions for moving forward and finding a little bit more understanding about your own communication style because you've named it. You named your barrier. And then you said a little bit something about why this barrier. So that means you have some connection. And because you ask yourself the question, why, answers are going to start flowing. So if people get any answers from this exercise, I'm on campus, please email me. I would like to know more how this turned out. But thank you for participating in this exercise and thank yourself for creating a new intention for yourself as well.
Dionne, I got many people chatted in the box that they are learning so much already from this presentation. So they are thanking you already for, and there's one nice, we just got it for the passive aggressive. Someone said that passive aggression doesn't necessarily look like leaving sticky notes or how you see in movies. It can look like procrastination and not communicating as clearly in that moment.
Yes.
So I wanted to just share with you their thought.
Thank you for sharing that insight. You're absolutely right. So next I'm going to share some more insights directly about assertive communication to help you with your journey to becoming a more assertive communicator. So next, I found this pretty cool YouTube video that does an excellent job of offering tips for assertive communication. So let's just jump right into the video.
Assertive communication is expressing our feelings and needs clearly and honestly while respecting the feelings and needs of others. You can learn more in this video, but basically, if passive communication is like being a doormat and aggressive communication is like treating somebody else like a doormat, assertive communication is like knocking. Why does anybody have to be a doormat? Just let each other in. There's only one problem. Assertive communication comes naturally to absolutely nobody. It's a learned skill. It takes practice. And it's scary to ask for what we need. What if we get rejected? What if they don't care what we need? What if we don't even know what our needs are? If any of this sounds familiar, here are 5 tips I've found to make assertive communication easier. 1. Learn to recognize and name your feelings. A lot of the time when we tell people how we feel, we're actually making judgments about them. I feel like you hate me. I feel disrespected. I feel ignored. While these might be based on feelings, they aren't feelings. Feelings are internal. What we're actually expressing is our evaluations of their behavior, which the other person may totally disagree with and therefore try to argue or dismiss. Which might be what's happening in Elizabeth's situation. Her mom is open to hearing what she wants and how she feels, but then gets frustrated and shuts down conversation when Elizabeth voices her opinion. Instead of, when you don't call, I feel like you hate me. What can help is to focus on our actual feelings, as opposed to our thoughts about those feelings. When you don't call, I feel anxious and lonely. That's a lot harder to argue with. If you're not comfortable talking about your feelings, which, let's face it, most of us aren't, easy exercise. Grab the nearest human and take turns naming random feelings. Happy, sad, annoyed, ecstatic. Use a thesaurus if you run out of ideas. Bitter, exasperated, furious, impassioned. Then try to recognize and name your feelings when they come up. I feel bored. I feel excited. When I do this exercise, I feel silly. I promise it's worth it. 2. Learn to recognize and name what you need. This is a challenge because a lot of the time we don't know what our needs are. We might think we just need somebody to do the dishes, when what we actually need is for them to take on a more equal share of the chores. We might think we need someone we're dating to text more, when what we really need is to feel secure in our relationship. So for this tip, practice looking for the need behind the need. Start with something you need, then dig deeper. Why do I need this? If you need a day off work because your friend is in town, great, just ask for a day off work. But if you need a day off work because you're burnt out from working 80-hour weeks, when what you really need might be a more sustainable work schedule. And addressing that need in one difficult conversation with your boss can prevent 20 future ones. We don't have to tell people everything, but another benefit of getting to the bottom of our needs is that people are generally more supportive of our solutions if they understand why we need them. 3. Start with low-stakes situations. If you're shy about practicing assertive communication, you can do what Chris suggests. Start with safe people and easy situations. Let your best friend know you have a headache and ask them to turn down the music. Ask the friendly waiter for extra whipped cream on your waffles without apologizing. This can make you feel empowered and build up your communication skills and confidence, which can prepare you for more difficult situations like when the stakes are higher or there are power dynamics at play, like talking to your boss. I'll link to a great TEDx talk about this. 4. Be aware of your body. Communication isn't just the words we use, it's also our body language and tone. If we're using assertive language while standing over somebody who's sitting, it can come across as aggressive. If our tone is timid, it can come across as passive. If we're sobbing or screaming, it's hard to get taken seriously. ADHD can make it hard to regulate our emotions. As Azure puts it, our reactions can be extreme. And as we get more emotional, our cognitive ability declines. So there's kind of a point of no return after which it's basically impossible for us to make rational decisions like step away from a toxic conversation. But if we're at least aware of our tone of voice, we can change it to better suit the situation. And being aware of our body can help us recognize when we start to get upset, which can be a good cue to step away before we hit that point of no return. Finally, 5. Don't wait. It's important that we speak up about situations that are problematic for us as early as possible, before they become a regular occurrence, especially if someone is mistreating or taking advantage of us. For example, last week I visited a friend from another country and it was great. The only problem was that she was putting me down all the time and I didn't say anything about it. I thought, well, it doesn't matter that much, it doesn't hurt me that much, it isn't a big deal. But the problem with this was that she was saying meaner and meaner things because I accepted them. When we don't call out behavior that hurts us, it tends to continue and even get worse. And once it's already part of the relationship dynamic, it's a lot harder to change. The same is true of our needs. If we establish a relationship where we're always putting the other person's needs first, even if it's for a good reason, it's not sustainable for us. It also leaves us open to being taken advantage of. It's good to be understanding of other people's limitations, but it's important to remember that we have limitations too. If we're clear about those early in a relationship, it's a lot easier to make sure everyone's needs are taken into consideration moving forward. That's 5 tips for making assertive communication easier. Of course, we can't control people. Needs conflict, and everybody is an individual who may react differently. So assertive communication doesn't guarantee we'll get what we want. In fact, in healthy relationships, we won't always get what we want. But if we're regularly assertive in our communication, we'll get what we need.
All right, awesome. I could never see that video enough times. So that leads us to our next part of bringing this all together, which is practice. So we're going to talk about some benefits of practice via one of my stories. So finding your assertive voice is easier said than done, so please keep that in mind. And anything we like to be good at is going to require practice and patience. So it's great to have patience with others, but please take the time to practice having patience with yourself as well. So I want to share a story about me and how I became more open to practicing this better communication. So I remember when I first realized I was dating the person of my dreams. And then my very next thought was, okay, Dionne, don't mess this up. Like, how are you gonna keep this person of your dreams? So during our first year of dating, things went pretty smooth. We rarely had any arguments until we finally did have an argument. And then we had another and another. Nothing too bad, just that we were having a lot of misunderstandings or miscommunications, which would lead to someone sleeping on the couch, mostly me. But I really wanted to make this work, and I know she did too. So I noticed 2 things that kept creeping up during our conversation. It seemed like sometimes she was speaking in Greek and I was speaking in German. We really struggled to see each other's points of view. So this made me reflect. In past relationships, I was very certain it was always the other person that was the problem. This was the first time I even considered that maybe I'm part of the problem. So I was so curious that I enrolled into an interpersonal communications class at my local community college. I learned some mind-blowing things. But one of the biggest reality checks I learned in that class was that me, can be an impatient listener, especially when frustrated. I would just shut down or stop talking. I would just walk away from the conversation just altogether. However, realizing and accepting this truth about myself, it helped me become more mindful about my own impatience. And as a result, I slowly but surely became a more patient listener. So again, practice is not always easy, but it turned out to be very rewarding. Over time, I found my stride with being more patient, and especially during challenging conversations. There were times when I failed miserably and I just could not get through a conversation. But every time I successfully made it through a hard conversation, I do a little celebration dance just for me on the inside. And I tell myself, whoo, we made it through that one. Okay, keep up the good work. I note the things that worked, the things that were stressing me, and I try to, bank that for the next time a challenging conversation comes up. So when you find something that's working for you, find your own celebration dance too. Give yourself a high five, pat on the back, but celebrate the things that work. And as my patience improved, I noticed that I gained more control over my passive aggressive tendencies as well. So my relationships with others were getting stronger. I was more mindful how I was addressing my wife or speaking to my kids, right? So yes, I just want you to take away that you know what? I want to also share this story that I heard about. There's this ship in Long Beach. It's called the Queen Mary. And I once heard a story that it takes 7 miles for the Queen Mary to make a U-turn, right? It's such a big mechanism. It takes 7 miles to make a complete turn. So my takeaway from that is sometimes we can't see the progress we're making because it may feel slow, but please just know, as long as you are mindful and you know that you are working at something, you may just not feel it because you're making that U-turn. But again, the value in this is you're moving, you're coming, you're going to come full circle. It's happening. So that's another tip. If you're feeling a little impatient with yourself, if you know your ship is making a turn, be okay with its pace. So we're going to take a few moments to think to yourself about a situation where you would like to communicate assertively. So remember, think low-hanging fruit. So I would say think maybe something next time you call the cable company or you need some form of customer service. Or maybe the next time your Instacart shopper messes up your order. So I'm going to stop talking now. I'm just going to let you look at the screen and just go 1 minute and see if you can just come up with a situation where you can practice being assertive. And I'm just going to stop talking and let y'all do your practice. I think that was around a minute, but this is just something I just want you to play with and just know sometimes if a thing seems too challenging, if you can find the laughter in it, find how you could play with this again to gain more understanding or learning. Okay, so now we're going to recap. Assertive communication is the ability to express our thoughts and feelings openly in an honest, appropriate, respectful, and direct way. It can be hard to do, but it will get easier with practice. And remember, assertive communicators aim for win-win outcomes. Please be aware of barriers to your assertive communication, such as negative self-talk. Negative self-talk can derail your journey towards obtaining your assertive communication style. And when an honest misunderstanding happens, you can try implementing clarifying questions or just give yourself permission just to let that go. I think it's really important that you learn more about all the communication styles, but especially if you find you have a dominant communication style. There is a ton of information. You can go onto the internet and find out more, or maybe you're already speaking with someone and when like a therapist, and you may want to ask your therapist like, hey, I have a little bit more clarity about this little thing. Can we talk about that? Not saying you need to, is just a different way you can utilize the information about the communication styles. Please don't judge your style, learn from it. Try communication do-overs. They really have a lot of value. And celebrate every communication code that you achieve, right? Just build that up, build up your bank of, oh, that worked well. So I think that Dr. Maya Angelou said it best. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you all for being here. Peter, Santita, the NOW Conference Committee, thanks for making this program happen every year. Thanks for accepting my proposal to talk about effective communication by way of assertive communication. We definitely, after this, we're going to jump into some just questions and conversations. But before we move to that part, please treat yourself with kindness. And when you do that, you know, people see that and they will tend to treat you with kindness as well, because they're going to treat you how you treat yourself. So thank you again. And let me see how I want to, yeah, I'm going to go stop my camera so we could answer some questions.
Hi, Dionne, we have a question. First question is, I find that I'm interacting with colleagues who is upset and is currently in an aggressive style. I retreat into a passive or passive-aggressive style out of fear or intimidation.
Yeah.
How do you assertively set boundaries and shift the communication in that moment?
Okay, you might not like this, but here's what I believe the answer is. That coworker, thank them. Not personally, internally, because they are this mirror of your passive aggressiveness. So you feel like they're bringing it out of you, but now it's your turn to investigate. This person just revealed your passive aggressive nature, but they didn't create your passive aggressive nature. So I'll end that by saying, you may feel like it's about the boss, but it's really an opportunity to get closer, find a closer connection of how you why you are feeling passive aggressive in the first place. Does that help?
Thank you, Dionne. Yeah, next question is, if I am looking for some support coaching for communicating in a team environment, do you have any suggestions of where can I get support? And we have many questions in the same context, like if any classes we have in the campus for peer-to-peer. So if any, there's any campus is providing any options in this area.
Okay, so there is, I forget what it's called. but it's about positive psychology, and I think they're called Good Something. They're on campus. They have newsletters. They have lots of offer great information on just managing. How do I say it? They just have lots of good offers if you're looking to improve or know more about positive psychology. You could always make an appointment with me. First session is no charge. One thing that helped me while I was on campus, it was indirect help, but I am also a Toastmaster. I completed all 10 of the mandatory Toastmaster speeches, but because I had to practice writing speeches and I want my speeches to be clear, it also just kind of naturally helped me with being more forward and direct with my words because I didn't want to run on or get off target. So that's something I know about campus. Again, if you have time to, mostly if you have time to find any courses that are offered maybe at your community college. I use the internet quite a bit, but if you want me to create some type of workshop for your group, just email me. I'll see what I could do. I'll be happy to help out.
Thank you, Dionne. Yeah, a lot of people may not know that we have Toastmaster in our campus. So you can just search internet and there are different locations inside the campus for Toastmasters. Next question is, can you please share the experience you said you learned yesterday? I believe you said it.
All right, okay, here I go. So I've had this presentation in my head for years. And I was working on this, I'll get a chance to talk about it. Let me write these thoughts down. And so as I am working on this presentation, I'm reminding myself of I've come a long ways. I am a better assertive communicator. I was feeling very confident, if you will. Like, I got this assertive thing down. And then last night, I got into it with my wife, right? The assertive thing, it broke down so fast. I was like, I blurted. I owed her quite the apology. But then I had to laugh because it was like, slow down. There's always a work in progress. Like, because my goal, I want to reach Dalai Lama level of being calm in myself and being able to manage my emotions. But I'm not the Dalai Lama yet, but I was feeling very Dalai Lama-ish the other night. So that moment reminded me, it grounded me like, hey, pace yourself. And just be respectful that you still have a lot to learn, but congratulate yourself that you are very happy and ready to learn. So yeah, that's what had happened just last night.
Thanks for sharing. Next question is button pushed. What triggered button being pushed?
Oh, all right. Wow. Since we're going there, thank y'all for letting me have therapy with you. I was telling my wife that I was not feeling heard, and it was making me feel, here's the funny thing. She was like, but how does it make you feel? I could not genie a feeling word. And it was so interesting. Like, I really need to print out a sheet of feeling words. I struggle with feeling words. I'm super logical, so I see everything in a pattern, right? So I know that about myself. So just to wrap it up, she finally says, you never even repeated back to me what I said to you. And I had to stop, like, that was the absolute truth. How can I be assertively in this conversation and actively listening if I haven't even taken the time to repeat back that I understand where she was coming from? So that's why I had to hold myself accountable, because that's the one thing I knew was true in the moment. I wasn't sure if she actually heard me. I wasn't sure if, my needs were met. But one thing that was true is that I did not repeat back what she had said to me. So we weren't really, I had not set that conversation up for success. That's what I learned. And so I know that I still have triggers, and really it was that not feeling heard.
Okay, thank you, Dionne. The next question is, in a big meeting, I have a lot of negative self-talk and don't feel like contributing because I feel judged. How can I change that?
Practice. Yeah. So it's awesome that you know that about yourself. So maybe 15 minutes before the meeting, an hour the day before, especially if there is an agenda provided, right? Look at the agenda, sit with it, and see if there's anything that speaks to you. Like, I would like to speak on this situation. And now visualize what you want to say, but more importantly, why do you want to say it, right? If you know why you want to say it, I want the managers to know that I feel stressed out, or I want the team to know that when we don't do this process, bad things start to happen, right? So just be okay with why you want to say it. I would start there. So right now you might be putting all your energy into like, I want to speak, but I'm scared. I want to speak, but I feel weird. Put that energy, just put it on the shelf, and let's change the question. What do I want to say? Why do I want to say it? And then as you find the value in that, it's going to add a little bit more courage, but also you're going to practice it. And let's say you get to the meeting, it doesn't work out. Like, I tried, let's go to your next meeting and take a moment to see how in the future you might engage in that meeting. So again, a lot of practice is right here, is visualizing how that might look for yourself. It might not feel great the first time you visualize it, but you just want to just play with that. Okay, what would it look like if I said that? And then you can start trying different things. Again, so my answer to that is practice, try to visualize yourself in that situation and how it will work out. And that negative self-talk, I have a tip. Hey, it's not true. It's not true. And you can tell your negative self-talk, like, this is not true. And most times, the negative self-talk is lacks facts. Check that out next time you have a negative self in a dialogue. See how many things are actually factual. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you. Thank you, Dionne. Next question is, what if the other person doesn't want you to be assertive or perceives assertiveness as aggression? This is especially a problem for women who are often perceived as unlikable or overly aggressive when we are assertive.
Well, I would say, remember that sometimes aggressive communicators may seem assertive. So, and assertive communicators are fully confident that they've done their due diligence to not be mean, to speak their needs, to let the other person know that I've heard them. So now, if you've done your due diligence as an assertive communicator, now you should feel no guilt, because you can't control how the other person is receiving that information. We have no control on how they're receiving it. But I tell you what, as you continue to stay within yourself and you feel confident that you're not crossing the line between assertive and aggressive, just focus on your practice. As you do that, people will see your actions and people will start to react to your actions. And I guess I want to end that by saying, don't give your other person the energy required to fulfill your need. Because when you put it on that other person, you're like tossing that energy over to them. Like, no, that's my energy. I need that for my own fulfillment and advancement of my communication skills. Like, don't just give your energy away to others if you can help it.
Thank you. I have the next question. When working with customers, I know we have to remain calm and friendly, even if the customer is being rude and aggressive. Is there a way to be assertive when providing customer service without being rude to the customer?
Well, this is right in my wheelhouse. So my first, I think 2 or 3 years with the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, I was front facing. So we have people from around the world have questions about UC Berkeley, and they would come right into 103 Sproul and talk to us. And we answer phones all day. So I absolutely do understand this question. So I would say there's 2 ways. Again, some calls, they could be learning lessons for yourself, like, oh, this caller really triggered me. Again, now, what do you learn about yourself in that moment? Because if you could identify the trigger, he triggered me because he cut me off. He triggered me because he was rude. I mean, of course, there's just some obvious reasons a person triggers you, but now think, this is a total stranger. They do not know me from a can of paint. Why would I take anything that they're saying personal? Oh, I have one more thing that just learned over the years of answering phones. You could keep this in mind when maybe it's a little different, but when people call our office, I will remind my student advisors, like, they're calling UC Berkeley. They're not calling you, right? So if that could help you not take it personal, remember that they are calling this big entity, and you just happen to be the person that's on the other end, but you don't know their point of view. Like, they're maybe trying to address an entire entity just via one person, and you have a certain wheelhouse. This is the information you can provide, right? And so also be comfortable with where your wheelhouse is. Like, this information is not something that I have expertise in, but here is another place that can help you. Or, I mean, I had this guy, I don't even have time to tell you, but okay, I got triggered once. And it was because this person came into my personal space. No one had ever done that. I got kudos for being maybe one of the coolest people on phones because I can handle all these call situations. But this one person came and reached and took a pin from my personal bubble. Right? But I had to learn about that. It was a little embarrassing because, like, all my student advisors was with me. So then I apologized to them, like, yo, I didn't even know that was a trigger, but I know it's a trigger now. If something like that happens again, I'm just have to be more aware of how that affects me and, like, put some things in place where I will be okay. And lastly, I'll just end by saying, sometimes you need that experience as a baseline. So now you know if that experience comes around again, you've already had some practice with it. So yeah, I'll end it by saying you can just really try that exercise of flipping those negative thoughts into a positive, or like I did the exercise like in the day, like how you can be aggressive and assertive and passive. But then I flipped it. Okay, in these same situations, you could practice. And so, yeah, I'll just end that. I know I'm just a long answer, but incorporate your practice, incorporate your patience. Do not hold the other person accountable for what you are working on. And yeah, stop it right there.
Thank you, Dionne. Sorry, we cannot take any more questions. We are out of time. Again, thank you, Dionne, for a wonderful presentation and for providing us some excellent tips on how to find our assertive voice. Thank you again. Everyone, please The link for the evaluation link has been posted in the chat. So please complete your evaluation. Up next is our 15-minute break with an optional Zumba activity. You can access that in the main conference room on the program website. And after the break, please get ready to join us for a second round of breakout session. I will see you there. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Have a great rest of
And
your
also,
day.
please note that the QR code is on the screen for the evaluation. And there's a lot of, everybody's thanking you, Dionne, for the great presentation. And thank you, Anna Meister, for sharing the Greater Good community. Thank you, everyone.